back to Poetry 101, where we dive into the great poetic works of the Romantic period. I'm your host, Acrimonious Jabronius. Today we have an absolute banger of a video for you. We're going to be looking at the poem Ozymandias by Percy Bysshe Shelley. Let's see what he's doing backstage right now. Pretty cool dude, right? We also have the traveler whose story he wrote the poem about. What's happening? Again, another cool dude. Now, let's get into the video. For those of you in the audience that are not aware of the historical background of this poem, Ozymandias was written in 1817 by Mr. Shelley. It was written during the Romantic period, which can be seen in some of the elements of the poem, which we'll get to later on. It was also written during the time where Napoleon was ruler of France. This is alluded to by the title of the poem, Ozymandias, who was also a ruler who thought he was unbeatable, but soon fell. Now introducing the poetic genius, Mr. Percy Shelley. So, Mr. Shelley, why don't you tell us about yourself?
So, I was born in 1792 in a small town in the United Kingdom. As a child, my parents believed that I was going to become a great author when I was older, and
That came
clearly, well, my name is Percy Bysshe Shelley, which means I am that great author.
Yes.
So, I don't need me to brag.
You don't need to.
I wrote Ozymandias.
Just move on.
Alright. Anyways, with this belief that I was going to be a great author when I was older, my parents decided to send me to Oxford so that I was able to continue my studies. And while I was at Oxford, I was sadly expelled because I wrote a series of papers that revolved around atheism.
Atheism, like the real one?
The real one. No God. That's what I wrote those about. Not too proud of it. Wasted a huge opportunity for my life. My apologies if that shocked you in any ways. Anyways, don't really like talking about this sad part of my life. But after this happened, me, my wife, Mary Shelley,
The author of Frankenstein.
you may know her, insane book, Frankenstein. You should all read it. Much better read than Pride and Prejudice.
Much better. Not even close. Not even comparable.
Frankenstein, Pride and Prejudice. Anyways, me, Mary, and a few others, including her sister, decided that we were going to kind of start a new life and start moving around and settle down somewhere else than around home. And while we were traveling, Mary's sister sadly committed suicide.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that.
It's alright.
As I'm sure we all are.
Yeah. Hit the family hard. Not really thing I really like to talk about. But
We
I
can just move on.
okay. After this happened, we decided that it would be good for us to move back to England. And when I moved back to England, it was probably the best decision I've ever made in my life. I began writing the greatest poems I've ever written before.
Okay.
Just words flowing off my pens.
Any poems that come to mind?
Ozymandias, of course.
It's a great one. Yeah, it's a great one. Any more or just that?
The only one I really like to talk about is Ozymandias. It's kind of revolves around my story here. That was one of the biggest poems I wrote back when I set home.
We'll be talking about that later on as the traveler comes down.
Yes, the Traveler. So glad to have him as a guest here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we're going to have to cut this interview a little bit short because we're running a little bit low on time, but I'd like to ask our guests sometimes a sillier question, and ours today is going to be, how do you think you're going to die?
Haven't really thought about that before.
No one has.
I mean, I guess I could give it a try.
Yeah.
I would have to guess that in about 1822, me and a friend would probably step foot on a boat and probably decide to go sailing. And I got this weird feeling that we're both gonna drown and die.
Okay.
And I don't know, it's kind of crazy to think about, but I think we're both gonna drown and die. And if I had to guess, my ashes would be buried in Rome.
Okay. For some weird reason, I just feel like that's going to come true.
Yeah,
I really do.
I mean, I'm an insane author, huge success, so that has
Okay,
to be true.
and now it's time for another commercial break. Hello, and welcome back to Poetry 101. It is now time for our second special guest of the day, the traveler from the poem Ozymandias. He met with Shelley, he helped him write the poem, now he's going to be talking to us about it. Come on down.
Meet you, sir.
You as well. Let's get straight to the interview. I know that the audience probably wants to know about this. I know that I especially probably want to know about it as well, just the details of your travels. So would you mind telling us about them?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I was traveling through Egypt and I came across the two vast stones. There's a broken face and trunkless legs, and I also believe there's a pedestal there as well.
A pedestal. Now I know sometimes on pedestals there's quotes or words inscripted onto them. Was there anything like that out there?
Yes, there was a quote. The quote said, "My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look at my works, ye mighty in despair."
Okay, it's a pretty powerful quote. Now, do you think that that quote had any significance into something that was going on at the time, or maybe 2 years prior?
Yes, I believe this alludes back to when Napoleon was in power, and he thought that his kingdom was never going to fall, and his arrogance ultimately led him for his kingdom to fall. And Ozymandias had the same thing, where his quote was very arrogant, and his kingdom fell as well.
Okay, now that's good stuff. Before, when we were talking about the historical background of the poem, we mentioned that the poem was a romantic style period poem. Would you mind elaborating on that and kind of telling us some of the characteristics that make it from that period?
Yeah. Back then in the romantic period, people took greatly to nature, and nature plays a great role in this poem, where the sand buries the sculptures and ultimately brings down Ozymandias' kingdom. And also, Percy Shelley wanted to stray away from the traditional structure, and in this case, the Petrarchan sonnet.
And that was typical of romantic poets at the time.
Yes, yes.
Okay, well, that's great stuff, Traveler. We will be right back after a quick commercial break. Welcome back again to Poetry 101. On this segment, we're going to have Percy Bysshe Shelley, the author of Ozymandias, come in and talk to us a little bit about the literary devices that he used in his wonderful poem. So, why don't you come on down here? He's only going to be talking about the literary devices. He will not be talking about himself
Mr. Jabronius,
or how great his poem is.
Thank you for saying that my poem is wonderful. Many other people think my poem Ozymandias is wonderful.
Right.
A lot of sales, a lot of attention
Right.
around it.
So I
Probably,
know
in my opinion, the greatest poem.
I know
of all
there's
time,
an
because
illusion.
I think that
there was an illusion
there's
in
a
the
lot
poem,
of stuff
correct?
that just makes this the greatest poem. of all
and
time.
one of that it would be the illusion.
The illusion, correct. This poem alludes to Napoleon and his army and empire, and the rise and fall of this empire, and how everything went through with them. There's also personification that says the hand that mocked them, and the heart that fed.
And that's a personification because
Hands can't mock, and hearts can't feed. So
it's giving them human characteristics.
correct, yeah, it's giving them human characteristics and skills, and that's just not.
You can't do that.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. And then there's also alliteration that says the lone and level sand stretched far, and that is alliteration because of the constant repeating of the L
Yes.
and constant repeating of the S.
Okay, perfect. Well, that was great, Percy.
Thank you.
And it was also
Can I
great.
say one more thing, please? Like, subscribe, comment, Ozymandias. Great.
Right,
Give
so
me your
that
best
is
regards.
officially all the time we have today for Poetry 101. Tune in next week. Next Thursday, we're going to have another great video.
I
on
might
the
be
poem
back. I might be
Sonnet 117 by William Shakespeare. So he won't be back, though.
Mine's better.
Okay,
Mine's
we'll
better.
see you later.